And welcome to Mission Unstoppable. It's been 17 years since I first interviewed Nigel Vardy on Mission Unstoppable, and last year marked the 25th anniversary since Nigel has seen the mountain that almost killed him, Mount McKinley, known today as Denali. Nigel is a mountaineer, an adventurer, a motivational speaker. But in 1999, at the age of 30, Nigel was a member of a 3 British expedition team who set out to climb the beast, Denali. One of the most dangerous mountains in the world to climb, and on that expedition, she lived up to her reputation. While Nigel, Steve Bell, and Andrew Hollinshead were lucky to make it out alive, the mountain demanded a heavy toll. The story is now told in a new documentary titled Frostbitten, which is about to hit theaters near you. So welcome, Nigel, and congratulations on your documentary.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Frankie.
So you hadn't seen Denali, Mount McKinley, as it's used to be known, in 25 years. That's a long time. What made
It
you
was a
want
long
to?
time.
Yeah. What made you want to go and face her?
Well, initially, I'd always wanted to go back at some point, but life usually gets in the way. And I was going to go back after 21 years, and then COVID got in the way. So
Oh, yes.
that stopped everything there. And I got ideas to meet up with other people, do all kinds of things, and they just didn't work. And then I just got to a point of, I will only ever have a 25th anniversary of this once, and I need to do something. So we need to go back, and I'd like to not only see the mountain and fly on and hopefully be on the mountain for a short while, but for me, something very big was to also meet some of the people I've stayed in touch with who literally rescued me, treated me, cared for me in the hospital, and to see them again and to basically say thank you.
Yeah.
And to say that face to face rather than an email or a message or something, to actually sit with them. And they also filled in a lot of the story that I never knew, because as a patient or as a casualty in a mountain rescue, you don't see the background. All you see is the accident, you put on a stretcher, you're flown to hospital, and you don't see any of the other side of it. And a number of people filled an awful lot of gaps in for me.
You were very fortunate. All of you were very fortunate that there was, let's call him a cowboy helicopter pilot on call that day, or actually was working that year for you, because I think I remember way back when we first spoke, and that was only 10 years after the event, that you said you were actually on the top of the highest peak that they would have been able to save you at. If you had been a little bit higher, they would not have been able to get you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And one of the interviews that we got for the documentary by complete chance with a lady called Annie, who we didn't know was still around. And we happened to literally quite bump into her, and she gave us an interview in the next 10 minutes. I mean, it was amazing, really. But she was saying, yes, the worst place to be is what we call the football field, which is the top summit plateau. And helicopters, certainly then and probably not now, just don't get people off from that high. It's so high. And the pilot, Jim Hood, who's sadly not with us now, I'm not going to say he broke the rules, but I certainly think he bent a few, and he pushed that chopper way into its limits to get us off. And obviously, I'm very thankful that he
Oh my
did.
gosh, yeah, for sure, for sure. You know, people always talk about Mount Everest as being the pinnacle, but Denali sounds like it's almost even more dangerous because it's so unexpected in the temperatures and what happens.
It's certainly a lot colder than Everest, from what I can gather, and also you can walk to Everest. There's a permanent base camp with lots of people, massive amounts of Sherpa support. On Denali, you're on your own.
Mm,
I mean, you really are. And this is not a modern documentary where we see people looking like they're on their own, but there's 18 film crew and drones and all the rest of it. This was 3 guys climbing together. And that's wonderful. It's all successful. But of course, if it goes wrong, there's only the 3 of you to rely on to try and get out of it.
yeah.
It's a lot more remote than Everest. Certainly not as high, but it has a fearsome reputation for weather, an absolutely horrific reputation for it.
You guys found yourselves after 17 days of trekking, I believe, in minus 60 Celsius degree weather, which is
Yeah.
really cold, really, really cold.
That's one way of putting it. Yes, it really is. I mean,
I would say something else, but I'm not going to say it on this show. I
you
say it on
know,
my other show.
over here in England, you know, if people get to about 0 - 2, they're all complaining that it's the end of the world and it's the apocalypse. And
Mhm.
I'm out in a pair of shorts and flip-flops. You know, I'm sort of looking at them saying, "This isn't cold." I mean, it
Mhm.
might be unpleasant and it's damp in Britain, which is the
Yes.
problem.
Yeah.
This isn't cold. This
No.
isn't cold. Cold's when bits start going black and falling off. Then it gets cold.
Then it's gold for sure. For sure, it's gold. Oh my goodness. So you were back then. I think you were the least experienced of the three that you went with. They were good friends, climbers, mountaineers. How did you guys hook up?
I'd done some expedition work. I put my teeth in with something in Britain called Rally International, which was a youth charity. It sent people all across the world. So I'd spent 3 months living and working in Chile.
Okay.
And Anthony Hollinshead also was on Rally International, but I think he was Borneo. I think Anthony was. So it was all over the world. But there was a big support structure in the UK, and we met through that support structure. And at an evening, actually, we were cycle touring in Britain. We met up at a dinner one evening in the
Okay.
Yorkshire Dales, and Anthony was there, and he just said, "Look, me and a couple of friends at the time are thinking of putting this trip together. How you fixed?" I'd just come back from altitude mountaineering in South America, and had been mountaineering in the Scottish peaks quite a long time, and had certainly faced altitude higher than Denali, McKinley. And they said, what do you think? And I sort of, said that very, very dangerous three-letter word. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think you say no very often.
It's got to be something quite serious if you get a no. But it started from there. We met at a dinner party. I knew Anthony. He then introduced me to Steve. They climbed together for a number of years. And we went and trained together in Britain and did all the paperwork, which was via fax machine in those days, glory be, and lots of organisational stuff in the UK. And then we flew out via Anchorage up to Talkeetna.
So did you have funding from any of these organizations or did you self-fund?
We self-funded it all. We got some discount on equipment. That's not uncommon, really.
Mhm.
But no, we self-funded the entire trip ourselves.
So what would that have cost you about at that time?
At
1999.
that time, crikey, I don't know, 3,000 pounds, something like that. That's a bit of a stab in the dark now, but yeah,
Yeah,
something around that
2000.
mark, I think,
Yeah, okay. So
Frankie.
that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's almost 5,000 Canadian.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And so you guys took off and Takitna was it's a little place where you get a little biplane, I guess, and takes you up to base camp. Do I have that
Um,
right?
it's a monoplane. There's one wing, but basically, yes, it's a propeller aircraft, four-seater, three climbers and the pilot, and your gear in the back, and it really is, bouncing around in the mountains, going through the passes. Takes 40, 50 minutes to get there, something like that, if the wind's with you. And you touch down at base camp. They actually take off on tarmac, so you've got, pneumatic rubber wheels. But you wind the skids down because you then land on a nice runway when you get to base camp.
That's amazing. Crazy. Crazy. So I wondered, I was watching the documentary. I was fortunate enough to be able to see it, to preview it. And who took that film? Who took those pictures? Who was taking the video?
Well, I mean, here's something for you. I work at a big mountain festival in the UK, very, very big, well-respected mountain festival, full of filmmakers. And I'd got this idea, and I went round everybody I knew saying, I've got this idea for a film. How are you fixed? And I got lots of and where, yeah. And I just thought, I've worked with all of you guys for so many years, and not one of you wants to help me. And I thought, well, that's great. Now what? And Helen, my good lady, said to me one day, um, I've completely forgot to tell you, I actually know a filmmaker. I said, really? Do you? Where is this person? And she put me in touch with a guy called Dave Hanna, who was the director and producer. And we went and met Dave, only locally, an hour or so's drive from here. And Dave said, "Yeah, it's a great project. And how long have we got?" And I said, "We've got till May." And he was thinking May 2025.
Mm.
And I meant May 2024. So we've got about 6 weeks to put the project together. And we did the whole thing, planned out flights, the lot from the UK with 6 weeks notice and 7 or 8, 10 days filming actually in country in Alaska.
That was amazing. But I was actually referring to the film that you the shots that were on the mountain. Was that actually? I mean, those were you guys, right? In the
Yeah, oh
crevice,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. So who took that
Um,
film?
um, well, there's been a number of documentaries over the years, Frankie. So in the film we've just made, the documentary we've just made, we took all the footage.
Right.
There are a few library shots that Dave picked from things, but we did manage to land on base camp via a flight from Talkeetna, complete with Dave, Helen, and myself, and another guy, another cameraman. And so they were actually shooting on base camp. We have 30 minutes. That's what you get on base camp, and then the planes go. So you've got to be on them.
Oh
And
wow.
27 minutes of that was filming.
Wow.
And this is nothing against people who work in the camera, the film industry whatsoever, but you're trying to engage in that moment, think about that moment. There's a camera here and there's a camera here, and you're being asked questions because they've got a job to do as well. We've
Sure.
got a very strict time limit, but it worked. I thought, I think he absolutely
Oh, I
busted
think
it.
he
I think
nailed it.
he
I think he
he,
did a great
he
job
pulled
of
it
it.
out. And the drone shots were all theirs as well. We did quite a lot of that in the national park locally.
Yeah.
So it was all shot, in situ in Talkeetna and on the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, it was really incredible, and I have to say, Nigel, you bloom on the mountain. Like you just come alive. As soon as those young mountaineers are around, or you're sitting on at base camp, it's kind of like you light up, you spark. It's like this is me. This is me. I'm part of this. It was incredible to
It's
see
home,
it, to
Frankie.
watch it.
It's
Yeah,
home.
yeah, it's home.
It's don't get me wrong. This is my house, and
Yeah,
all
I
the rest
get
of it.
it. I get it.
But when you're there, and I've literally only yesterday come back from a sea kayaking trip in Norway. Um, it's just very very different when you're in the genre in the place, wherever that place is, and you're in an environment of like-minded people who, in the case of Denali, are all trying to get on the mountain.
So I alluded to the fact that you paid a heavy price. You can show your hands. You're missing a few fingers. You're
One or
missing
two.
a nose.
Yeah, that's my
Toes on one
forehead. Yeah.
hand and half a foot, I think, on the other, but almost.
Just under. I've got a ball missing, so toes and a ball missing on my left foot. Just the toes are missing on my right foot, and then both heels were very badly damaged as well.
But it didn't stop you.
No, no.
How many
And
mountains
people
did
will
you
say I'm
climb
actually
since
worse
then?
now. People say I'm a damn sight worse now than I've ever been,
Oh my gosh.
and
You got nothing left to
probably
lose.
yes.
Come on. What
Well,
you've climbed now seven of the highest mountains?
I did a challenge. There is a challenge to do the tallest peaks on every continent. And I took a very straight view of that, of that's just not me. I don't do large groups of people. I don't do busy places, and a number of those peaks are quite large and very busy. So I did. Well, I was actually on Baffin Island, and I met a guy from Guatemala, as one does, and a guy called Jaime Vinos, lovely guy, who said, "I'm going to climb the tallest peaks on the seven biggest islands in the world." And we had a chat in the middle of a blizzard, and so I went and did them.
Wow.
And most of them, there were two, three people there at best. One, there was only myself, just nobody there at all. And I can understand to some people, because they're not the biggest, the tallest, and have an enormous name against them, they're not of interest. What I would say is you go and try and climb some of these places and belt your way through jungles and all the rest of it, and then we'll see what you're made of.
And I mean, you're missing a few fingers. Can't be easy to climb.
No, it isn't. And my entire life has changed in the fact of, doing a button on a shirt,
Right.
or typing on a keyboard, to holding a paddle, which I was doing last week, to climbing a mountain. Everything is very much different. I'm getting arthritis in what's left of this thumb now.
For
Welcome to old
typing,
age.
texting.
Texting and just giving it a hard time. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't been, people say I've not been very kind to my body. My view is I will not die in an unused body. And if there's anything left of it at the end, then that'll be a bonus. But life is to be lived.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adore being on expedition, on travel, going to unusual places, probably that a lot of people just aren't bothered about. It's not got that name or anything else. But to me, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I love Norway. I'm a little jealous that you were just there because it's one of my favorite places to go.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is so untouched in so many places. It's great.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. And sea kayaking, wow. That's cold
And
too. Was that's
that
on
can
the
be cold.
Baltic or the Black Sea?
I've
Where
well,
were
I've
you?
sea kayak twice in Greenland now, in between icebergs, a number of
Wow.
times in Norway and the Hebrides in Scotland. And the thing with sea kayaking is, and this has just come from mountaineering and meeting people and all the rest of it, um, it takes the pressure off my feet, but obviously holding a paddle with
Yep.
these is not easy. But I was an engineer for many, many years. So you find a way, you adapt, or you adapt the kit, you work something out that works for you. And I like the piece of sea kayaking. So rather than being at the top of the cliff, you're at the bottom bobbing around,
Yeah.
and you can get to places on coast that are just not accessible by foot. And last week, sea kayaking Norway, we saw no other sea kayakers, a few boats, and not much more.
And who did you go with? How many
Well,
people?
a group of friends. There were six of us in total, five of us in total. Bizarrely, when I went to Alaska to open the documentary, I bumped into a pair of Australians living in Texas,
I
and they
love it.
flew
I
to
love it.
Norway and joined us.
Oh my gosh.
And then there was a couple of guys I used to work with in the electricity industry for many, many years who were desperate to come and have a look. They came as well. And an old friend of mine who I know through TED Talks and TEDx Talks. And I've got a friend out there who's a professional coach. She can organise all the logistics in Norway, and we just go.
Wow. That's incredible. So what do you like better, the cold? It seems like you like the cold than the heat.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
prefer the
yeah.
cold to the heat.
When I was little, I had something called catarrh, so my lungs would all be stuck up all the time and full of gum, and I'd cough. And a lot of that was brought on by hot summers. Even though I did cough in the winter, I found the summers quite stifling. And I think that's why now, even to this day, I prefer winter.
Okay.
I would rather have a crisp, blue sky, freezing cold winter day any day over hot summer.
Yeah. I don't like the heat either. But as you get older, though, you don't like the cold as much either. So it
Well,
has to be perfect.
you know, we can't have it always,
This
and I
is
don't
true.
mind the cold, particularly if it's dry cold. So when you're in a
Yeah,
place
dry
like
cold is fine.
Denali, dry cold's fine.
Yeah,
The thing we get in Britain, it'll be not the cold I know, but it might be zero, but it'll be raining, and that really is quite miserable at times.
yeah, especially for arthritis. That gets in
Oh
your
yeah,
joints. That gets in
yeah,
your joints for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So your sister was quite prevalent in the documentary, which was kind of nice to see. You could see
Mm,
that a lot of love
yeah,
there for
yeah,
you.
yeah. And she actually, after the initial accident and being airlifted to a hospital in Anchorage, my sister flew out to hopefully bring us all home. She was actually trained as a care nurse.
Oh,
So
okay.
she knew all about caring for patients in the way of care. And so the hospital happily discharged, there were three, obviously the three of us at the time, into my sister's care for the flight to get home. And then we all went our ways, hospitals and such, when we got back. But Amanda and me have been close since very young, but we are chalk and cheese. I mean, as she openly says in the documentary, I just don't sometimes think he's my brother.
Mhm.
She's been a very mum, have children, stay at home,
Not too
interest
adventurous.
locally, not too adventurous. And I've turned into the, mountain trekking psychopath maniac of a brother. Um, but she helped care for me, particularly initially, and also support my mum and dad because to them this was a massive blow, fear, worry, and particularly, of course, I went and did
For your
so many other
mother, because
trips as
your
well.
mother doesn't want to see anything happen to a child like what happened to you. She birthed you perfectly. Now you're
Well,
you're missing things. It's not right.
and and the thing is that it was bizarre for my mother. My dad had been in the army many years ago, and I think he understood some of the things, why you want to do it. My mum never did. But the thing with my mum, she'd be absolutely terrified about me going away. But as soon as I came home, everybody in the town will be saying, "Where's your Nigel been? What's your Nigel been doing?" And while she was full of the joys of spring at that, telling everybody what I'd been up to and where I'd been and
Yeah,
great long stories. And I actually used to do lectures locally just for the public. And my dad would do the tickets. My mum and my auntie would do the tea and buns and everything at half time. And we did like a family affair all together, and it worked really well.
that's hilarious, actually. The tea and the buns. So British. I love it. So when you reached the hospital, that was Anchorage? They took you to Anchorage? Is that where
It
they took
was,
you?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
They'd never worked on anybody like you before. They didn't even know how to save you, really. They were experimenting in some ways.
They'd certainly seen frostbite, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
They
they
have
saw
thermal
frostbite.
units, and from a British perspective, we don't have cold injuries here. So we have burns units, they have
Yeah,
thermal ones,
yeah,
thermal units. The difference was the way it was treated. And Connie, one of the nurses, the pain nurse who treated me, who's in the documentary,
yeah,
as she said in the documentary, she rang Finland to ask their advice about putting two epidural lines in the spine of a patient, which to her knowledge had never been done.
yeah.
Finland said okay, and I can still remember. I can remember Connie bending me forwards over with trying to get one line in my shoulder and one in the back of in my back and one on top of my shoulder,
Oh, they're trying
and
to
all
get
the
your hands numb and your feet numb at the same time. Is that what they're trying
yeah.
to?
So
Okay.
to basically, but also to thin the blood to a point where it pounds against the wound face so it can try and get there. And she said, we've never tried it. We don't think we've ever done it since. It was really on the edge stuff.
Yeah,
But as far as I'm concerned, it gave me, I was frostbitten below this knuckle and it gave me that knuckle. And it doesn't look much, but it's damn useful.
right.
It was that initial early treatment and the support of those people that once you start that ball rolling, you're a lot better at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Early intervention's massive.
I was in a serious accident and landed in a hospital for 6 months. I understand things, but when you were coherent and you're looking at your hands and you're 30, you're young.
Mm.
Like what went through your head? Did you think my life is over? Did you think, oh, it's okay, I'll get on with it? Like your personality type is adventure, but what were you thinking?
The hardest thing for me is having an engineering brain. I like answers. Yes, no, one, naught, on, off, and there weren't any. The one great thing that happened, Dr. Mills, who was the spitting image of Father Christmas, it really was, came in the room one evening. He'd retired and he'd come in post-retirement to see us. And he looked me up and down very quietly and he said, "Mr. Vardy, you'll be in the mountains again." And I don't think I really understood at that early stage what a huge statement that was. And he knew. He could see it in me and the injuries. He could see what was going to happen, but he also possibly could see this is what this guy's like and he's just going to go and do these things. But it's mind numbing actually watching parts of your body die. And you can't intervene in any way. There's nothing you can do. You've just got to quite literally take the medicine. They don't dress frostbite injuries. They don't put anything on them. They're very visible. They want them breathing. And so it's very obvious to you when they start to die. And
They fall
it's
off? Do they
mind
just fall
numbing. It's
off?
no, they have to
Did they
amputate
they
them. I
amputate?
think I think ultimately if they left them long enough they would. But initially, let's go back into the 1950s or 60s, they just cut them off.
Yeah.
What Dr. Mills and others learned, particularly I believe in the Korean and Vietnam, or Korean Wars, I think, in the Pacific Theatre, was let them settle, give them time. So we were flown back to the UK. They bandaged everything up and said, "You will not bang it. You will not use them. Let's get you back to the UK." The limbs then go very hard, very black. They call it necrotic tissue. And only then, when they finally decided there is no more, then they'll put the knife in. And we're talking 2 months afterwards, something
They
like
did it
that.
all at the same time?
No, they did this hand first, so I could eat with this one with a spoon, because a patient that can't feed themselves is a bit useless.
Yeah.
So they did
Yeah.
one hand, and then they did the other hand, both feet, both heels. My nose and cheek fell away naturally in time. Um, and ultimately, it was 10 bouts of major surgery with skin grafting and many other things.
But you stayed positive the whole time.
And certainly not all the time, Frankie. No, when they did my toe, both sets of toes, heels, and one hand, I was in a pretty dark place for a while, and I often think back to that room that you're quite lonely. You can't get out of bed, though you have friends and nursing staff and
Mhm.
such there. You do feel really alone in your own thoughts. And I thought, if that window would open, I was about 3 floors up. If that window could open, I'll be out of it. But it
To
was a
not to,
sealed
to off
window.
yourself, you mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm surprised to hear
But
you
it
say that.
but it was a sealed window. You couldn't open it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those
And
thoughts are momentary. And I remember, I know, but people feel pain differently and people feel, the extent of injuries differently. Like yours were massive injuries.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
remember, I was in a hospital bed, both legs were gone, like broken, everything, hip, pelvis, everything was broken. And the woman next to me broke a nail and she screamed.
Oh
I go,
yeah.
what happened? She goes, oh, I broke my nail. I go, are you kidding me here right now? Like I can't move and you broke a nail. And so that capacity to handle certain things and the big pain, the little pain, like everybody's different in how they handle it. And I can see where, just that little there's a short window where you think, oh, I'm useless, I'm gone, right? But it passes and look what you've accomplished since then. And I think that's a really important story to tell people too, because, people who are thinking of suicide or thinking that life is over, it's not over till it's over. Like our capacity to do things that are amazing is incredible. We don't know. And we don't reach our limits until we reach our limit. So you don't know.
No, no. And then we start pushing past our limits sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, physical pain. I took a horrific amount.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, some people think it a little bit masochistic now. I needed to feel that pain to prove to myself that things were happening.
Hmm.
Because if everything's painless, it's not that you don't earn it. It's almost a fact. If I didn't feel it, so it's not real. Whereas when you actually feel really excruciating pain, you then know that the situation you're in is very real. This is no dream. This is no joke. This is happening. This is what's going on. And I felt some absolutely horrific pain, particularly the first day I walked. They'd taken my
Oh,
toes off on the Friday, and the
imagine.
following Wednesday they stood me up. And it was beyond excruciating, but the drive to stand was stronger. And so I stood and I walked some paces. And in fact, I was chased down by the nurses in the end because I'd walked out the room and I was going halfway down the corridor.
Wait, we just
And
said
they
a
were
step.
saying, yeah. And then they said, will you come back and put me in a wheelchair? Because as well, I'd got skin grafts on my wounds on my feet as
Yeah,
dressings. They didn't want to damage them, which is fair enough.
yeah,
But I was gone. I mean, that was it. I'm up
yeah.
right now. Bye. See you.
Have you seen Steve and Anthony since?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
funny enough. We caught up only a few weeks ago in the UK. I premiered the film initially in Talkeetna. We went over earlier this year, and then I did one locally in my own local cinema. We've got like a Art Deco theatre in the town, and I decided, I wanted to do a local one with the people that were involved in my recovery, climbers that have inspired me, Steve and Anthony particularly. And they both came down for the preview, and it was absolutely great, delightful to see them again. It really, really was. We're all getting older, our hair's all getting whiter, but we're all still there, and
Yeah.
we're still doing, busy things and getting on with life.
How was Steve when they reached him? He seemed to be the worst for the wear in the
He
film.
was, yeah. He'd spent another night on the mountain
Oh well.
on top of our night and broke his legs and was exposed to the elements, and he was in a terrible state, frankly. He was found the next day, and something I learned from Daryl Miller, who was one of the rangers who saved me, and we interviewed Daryl for the piece. He said that Steve's helicopter rescue wasn't particularly high, but it was the longest haul under a chopper in history on the range.
Wow.
And so he spent 2 nights out rather than one. And I mean, the bizarre thing was, we thought Steve was fine. because he'd gone to get assistance. Assistance had come, therefore, mathematics says Steve's okay. The assistant was coming anyway, and we didn't know. And Steve took this awful fall, and he was put in the room next to me in Anchorage,
Oh,
and yet I
wow.
didn't see him for 6 days because neither of us were allowed to move.
Wow.
And it was only the fact that I was pushed out in a chair one morning to go on, you had to have a bath every day for the frostbite, and they pushed Steve out at the same time.
And nobody
And
ever
all of
said
a
to you,
sudden
"Oh,
it
your
was,
buddy is next door." Nobody ever said
no,
that.
nothing. And well, Anthony was walking, so we knew Steve was there, but we
Yeah.
couldn't actually get to each other.
Yeah.
And it was like, hello. It was all really quite shocking. And then to see how bad his injuries were as well. And yet
Yeah.
you'll not meet a more positive man now, particularly after what he's been through. What a delightful guy. He really is.
And anything happened to Anthony?
Anthony lost three fingertips,
Oh, he did.
and though his feet were very, very cold, they did recover. And he was
Okay.
allowed to walk after only a few days, actually. So he was very lucky in that respect, and his fingertips were removed when he came back to the UK.
And they're still climbing.
No, Anthony's now a father of three, I think, and a very busy father, and working full time as well. So he's really, really busy. He does quite a lot of mountain biking now. Steve, after his injuries, doesn't climb so much, but when I bumped to him at his house just before COVID, I think actually it was, he was building a summer house. Now,
Okay.
bear in mind, this man has no fingers. I mean, none. My hands are big compared to Steve, and he just gets on with life. He runs a lot, and he's just got a beaming smile all the time. And yes, I've kept climbing and sea kayaking and photographing and generally being daft. And I'll keep going till my legs
How
drop
old are you
off.
now? Sorry, I got to ask that. I think you were 30 at the time.
56.
56. Okay. So
56.
you're still
Yeah.
young. You're
Yeah.
still young.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At least the hair stayed in. I'm very happy about that.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. Wow. Congratulations on getting that documentary made and for the release. I mean, it's going to come. We're all going to see it soon. It'd probably be in
Well,
art
I'm
houses
certain.
more than anything for sure. But, you know, get ready to watch this documentary and be inspired by it because I think it's absolutely amazing. It's incredible. I'm so proud to, you were maybe one of, not my first, but one of the first podcasts that I'd had on the Good Radio Network. And I mean, I'd been since 2004, but I think it was 2009 around there when I first interviewed you. But
Yeah.
it's so cool to be able to 17 years later to catch up and just see where life took you and what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thank
so
you.
welcome. All right. Well, thank you so much. You've been listening to Mission Unstoppable Radio. I'm the host, Frankie Picasso. My guest today was Nigel Vardy. You're going to look for his movie, Frostbitten, and it'll be coming to at the